The message arrived in the dead of night. It traveled through the cold emptiness of space for 3 years before reaching Earth's deep space receivers. The sound crackled and broke, filled with static and desperation. Director Kim stood motionless in the control room of Global Space Command. The overhead lights cast shadows across his weathered face as he watched green text scroll across his screen. His team worked silently around him, their fingers moving quickly over keyboards as they tried to clean up the signal. "Sir, we've managed to translate most of it," said Lieutenant Park, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might break the gravity of the moment. Kim nodded, his eyes never leaving the screen. The message was broken, but clear enough. Final transmission. Ardelian Republic. Overwhelmed. Seeking aid from any civilization. The Void Collective consumes all. Kim ran his hand through his silver hair, a habit from younger days that had never left him. "How far?" he asked. 42 light years, sir," Lieutenant Park answered, checking her calculations again. Based on the degradation patterns, the signal was sent approximately 3 years ago. Any response from other stations? All major Earth receivers picked it up simultaneously. The Americans, Europeans, Chinese, Africans, everyone's confirming receipt. Kim stood straighter. This wasn't just a discovery. It was confirmation of what humanity had theorized for centuries. They were not alone, and someone out there needed help. "Alert the Council immediately," he ordered. Full emergency protocol. Within 6 hours, the United Earth Council chamber filled with representatives from every nation. The room hummed with tense whispers. Many had traveled through the night to reach the emergency session in Seoul. President Choi sat at the center of the curved table, flanked by military and scientific advisors. Her face remained calm despite having been awakened at 3 a.m. with news that would forever change human history. "The signal is authentic," Director Kim confirmed from the podium. "We'd verified it through every method available. This is legitimate first contact, a distress call from a civilization calling themselves the Ardelian Republic." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Admiral Lee stood next, his military uniform crisp despite the early hour. "We've analyzed the limited data embedded in the signal. It contains basic information about their species and threat assessment." He activated the central holographic display, showing strange anatomical diagrams and astronomical maps. The Ardelians appeared to be an advanced civilization, but physically fragile by our standards. Most interestingly, they classified Earth as a death world in their database. "A what?" asked the representative from Brazil. "A death world," explained Dr. Moon, the chief xenobiologist. She stepped forward, her round glasses reflecting the holographic light. "According to the data, most intelligent life evolved on worlds with lower gravity, stable climate patterns, and less extreme environmental variations than Earth. Our home, with its earthquakes, hurricanes, extreme temperature ranges, and high gravity, would be lethal to most galactic species." Admiral Lee nodded, "which gives us a potential advantage. Our gravity alone means we've evolved stronger muscles and denser bones. Our ability to survive temperature variations from polar to desert regions in a single planet is apparently uncommon. Even our atmospheric composition would be considered toxic by many species." "So we're space monsters," commented the Australian representative dryly. "More like space tough guys," corrected Admiral Lee. The chamber fell silent as President Choi stood. Small in stature but commanding in presence, she looked around the room slowly, meeting the eyes of key representatives. "For centuries, humanity wondered if we were alone," she said, her voice steady. "Today we know we are not. And we also know that someone out there needs our help." "Madam President," interrupted the German representative, "should we not be cautious? This could be a trap, or even if genuine, why should Earth involve itself in an alien conflict?" President Choi's expression remained firm. "The signal indicates this void collective represents a consuming force that doesn't stop with one civilization. If we ignore this call now, we may face the same threat alone years later." She turned to Admiral Lee. "What is your military assessment?" "Our response capability is stronger than ever," he replied. "The United Earth Fleet has been training for deep space operations for decades, even without alien contact. The UES Thunderstorm and her sister ships could be prepared within weeks." The debate continued for hours. Scientists argued over data. Military strategists assessed risks. Philosophers debated the moral obligation to respond. In a quiet moment, Director Kim approached President Choi during a recess. "40 years in space monitoring," he said softly, "and I never truly believed I'd see this day." She smiled briefly. "Do you think we can help them?" "I think we must try," he answered. "The signal indicates the Ardelians have advanced technology, but lack our physical resilience. Perhaps that's exactly what they need." When the council reconvened, the mood had shifted. There was still fear, still uncertainty, but also a growing resolve. Humanity had fought itself for millennia. Perhaps this was finally a chance to fight for something greater. President Choi called for a vote. Nation by nation, representatives signaled their decision. Not unanimous, but an overwhelming majority. "Then it is decided," she announced. "Earth will answer this call. We will prepare and launch a response fleet with all necessary resources." She turned to Admiral Lee. "Who do you recommend to command this mission?" Admiral Lee didn't hesitate. "Commander Han, Madam President." A holographic profile appeared, showing a man in his 40s with calm, thoughtful eyes and a record of both brilliant tactics and exceptional diplomacy. He commanded our Martian defense during the asteroid crisis. When communications failed, he made difficult decisions that saved thousands of lives. More importantly, he understands that force is only one option among many. President Choi nodded. "A warrior who understands mercy. Precisely what we need." Within days, the UES Thunderstorm underwent final preparations in Earth orbit. The massive ship, 3 kilometers long and built for deep space exploration, was being converted for a mission no one had ever imagined. Engineers worked around the clock, modifying systems and loading supplies for a journey with no certainty of return. Commander Han stood at the observation deck, watching Earth turn slowly beneath him. He'd been halfway across the world when the call came. Now he carried the hopes of humanity on his shoulders. "Sir," said his second-in-command, approaching with a tablet. "Final crew selections are complete." Han nodded. "They understand this is likely one way." "Yes, sir." Still had 10 volunteers for every position. Han turned back to the view of Earth. 3 days ago, humanity had believed itself alone in the universe. Now they were preparing to defend a species they'd never seen against an enemy they didn't understand. But humans had always been this way, facing the unknown with equal parts fear and determination. Perhaps that's why they had survived their death world long enough to hear a distant cry for help. "Begin final boarding," Commander Han ordered. "We launch at dawn." The UES Thunderstorm emerged from faster-than-light travel with a brilliant flash of light. Commander Han stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he looked at the main view screen. The ship's sensors quickly scanned the area, mapping the Ardelian solar system. What they found silenced the entire bridge crew. The Ardelian homeworld hung in space like a wounded creature. Once beautiful rings of satellites now existed as fields of debris. The blue-green planet below was scared with massive black streaks visible even from orbit. "Life signs?" Han asked, his voice tight. "Scattered population centers," replied Officer Shin, studying her readings, "mostly concentrated in the southern hemisphere. Environmental damage is extensive." Han nodded grimly. "Deploy the fleet in defensive formation. Prepare the landing craft." Within hours, the first Earth ships descended through the atmosphere. Commander Han led the main diplomatic team, accompanied by 20 soldiers and Dr. Min, their xenobiologist. They landed in what sensors indicated was the largest remaining city. The landscape that greeted them looked like something from a nightmare. Once tall crystal spires lay shattered. strange metal structures twisted like melted plastic. The air was thick with a sweet-smelling smoke that made the humans' eyes water despite their protective gear. "Movement ahead," warned Captain Joe, raising her weapon slightly. From the ruins emerged a group of the strangest beings the humans had ever seen. The Ardelians stood nearly 7 feet tall, with slender bodies that seemed almost too thin to support life. Their skin was partially translucent, showing a network of glowing veins beneath. Large, multi-pupilled eyes dominated their narrow faces. The humans removed their helmets as a sign of trust. The effect was immediate and unexpected. The Ardelians recoiled, several making high-pitched sounds of distress. One fell to its knees, trembling. "Hold position," Han ordered his team, raising his empty hands to show he meant no harm. One Ardelian, wearing an ornate shoulder covering that Dr. Min suspected indicated leadership, cautiously approached. The beam's movements were fluid, almost floating. "Your internal temperature," gasped the Ardelian, speaking through a small device that translated its whistling language. "You radiate heat like furnaces. You breathe nitrogen-oxygen mixtures that would burn our lungs." Han stood perfectly still, trying to appear less threatening. "I am Commander Han of Earth. We received your distress signal." The Ardelian's large eyes blinked in rapid succession. "I am Delegate Kang. We sent that signal years ago, when hope still existed." "Yet you sent the SOS," Han replied gently. "Out of desperation." Kang's translator conveyed the mix of fear and wonder in the alien's voice. "The Void Collective has conquered 70% of known space in mere months. We never imagined," Deathworlders would respond. Han heard Dr. Min's sharp intake of breath behind him. This confirmed their theories about Earth's classification. "We are here now," Han said. "Tell me everything about this enemy." Over the next hours, in a partially collapsed building that once served as a government center, Kang explained their situation. The Ardelians projected holographic maps showing the rapid expansion of the Void Collective across their sector of the galaxy. "They came without warning," Kang explained. "They do not communicate except to demand surrender. They do not take prisoners. They consume." "Consume what?" asked Dr. Min. "Everything. Resources, technology, life itself." Kang's slender limbs trembled. "They extract energy from living beings. Whole planets are harvested until nothing remains." Captain Joe leaned toward Han. "Sir, these tactics match no known human warfare strategy. This is more like a virus." Han nodded, studying the holographic displays. "How do they fight?" Kang projected images of strange, asymmetrical ships that seemed to change shape. "Their technology adapts quickly. Their ground forces are both mechanical and biological. They feel no pain, need no rest, require no motivation beyond consumption." "And your defenses?" Han asked. "Failed completely." Kang's translator rendered the words flatly. "Our species evolved in peace. We developed art, science, philosophy, but little defense. When the collective arrived, we had nothing effective against them." Dr. Min pointed to readings on her device. "Commander, the Ardelians evolved in approximately 60% of Earth's gravity. Their body chemistry suggests even minor physical trauma would be catastrophic for them." Han understood. The Ardelians were like delicate glass sculptures compared to humans, who had evolved under harsher conditions. "We will help you," Han said, standing straighter. "Earth will establish defensive positions around your remaining cities. We'll need to understand your technology, combine it with ours." Kang's reaction wasn't what Han expected. The alien's body language suggested something between hope and horror. "You don't understand," Kang said. "No species has ever successfully resisted the collective. Thousands of civilizations, many more advanced than yours, have fallen. Your weapons, your ships, they will adapt to them within days." Han smiled slightly. "Then we'll have to keep surprising them." Within a week, Earth forces constructed defensive perimeters around the 3 largest remaining Ardelian cities. Human engineers worked alongside the alien scientists, combining technologies. The Ardelians possessed advanced energy systems and materials unknown to Earth, while humans contributed their robust weapons systems and tactical experience. The surviving Ardelians watched the humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. They observed in wonder as human soldiers worked tirelessly in conditions the Ardelians found barely survivable. "Your people continue working despite injuries that would kill us," Kang told Han as they observed a group of engineers repairing a defense turret. One soldier had a bandaged arm, but kept working. "Earth has taught us endurance," Han replied. "Our planet tries to kill us regularly. Storms, earthquakes, extreme temperatures. We adapt. Perhaps that is why the collective avoids Deathworlders," Kang mused. "You are unpredictable." As if summoned by this conversation, every communication device suddenly activated. A harsh, mechanical voice cut through all frequencies. "Primitive species, surrender or join the harvested." The message repeated 3 times before stopping. Sensor officers reported massive energy signatures appearing at the edge of the system. "The Void Collective has arrived," Kang whispered, the translator unable to fully convey the dread in the alien's voice. Han walked calmly to the main communication terminal. His officers watched, tense but trusting their commander. Han's response was brief. "We decline your offer." After sending the message, he turned to his stunned officers and the trembling Ardelians. "Prepare all defenses," he ordered. "The real first contact begins now." From orbit, the Earth fleet moved into battle formation. The UEA's Thunderstorm led the line, weapons powering up as the first strange, shifting shapes of the Void Collective emerged from the darkness of space. The first assault from the Void Collective came like a dark wave. Their ships, unlike anything humans had seen before, moved in perfect unison. They did not communicate with each other, but acted as if controlled by a single mind. The battle in space was brief but devastating. 3 Earth ships were destroyed in the first hour. But Commander Han had expected this. The Thunderstorm held position, absorbing data about the enemy's weapons and tactics. Every shot, every maneuver was recorded and analyzed. On the planet's surface, the Void ground forces pushed toward the Ardelian cities. They moved with mechanical precision, not marching but flowing like a dark liquid across the landscape. Some appeared robotic, others partially biological, but all shared the same cold purpose. In the main defense command center, Dr. Song worked frantically. Her fingers flew across control panels as she studied the incoming data. A small, intense woman with quick eyes and quicker thoughts, she had been Earth's leading weapons developer for 15 years. "They adapt," she muttered, watching recordings of the Void weapons changing form mid-battle. "But all adaptation requires information processing. There must be a delay." Captain Yoon entered the room, her uniform torn and dirty from the front lines. "Dr. Song, we're losing the northern perimeter. Their weapons cut through our shields like they aren't there." Dr. Song nodded without looking up. "Give me 2 more hours." "We might not have 2 hours," Yoon replied. "Then get me one." Captain Yoon returned to the battlefield. The Earth soldiers had established defensive lines using both their own technology and modified Ardelian energy barriers. The alien weapons should have been superior, but the Ardelians had never developed the tactical thinking that Earth's centuries of warfare had perfected. Delegate Kang found Captain Yoon at the northern perimeter, where she was helping a wounded soldier to safety. "Your people continue despite injuries that would incapacitate us," Kang said, the translator conveying genuine amazement. The delegate watched as the injured soldier, despite a deep cut across his shoulder, picked up his weapon again after receiving basic medical care. "Earth taught us persistence," Yoon replied, adjusting her tactical display. "When you evolve on a world that regularly tries to kill you, you learn not to give up." Kang's many pupilled eyes blinked rapidly. "Perhaps that is what we lacked. Our world was gentle to us." At that moment, a communication came through from Dr. Song. "I found something. All units switched to frequency pattern Alpha 3. Weapons modification data uploading now. The change was immediate. The Earth soldiers' weapons, quickly modified according to Dr. Song's instructions, began to penetrate the Void Force's defenses. The creatures emitted strange, high-pitched sounds, the first indication that they could feel pain. They adapt based on what they encounter, Dr. Song explained later in the command center. But their adaptation relies on patterns. If we keep changing our approach randomly, their predictive algorithms fail. Over the next days, this became Earth's primary strategy. Dr. Song created weapons that changed frequency and output randomly. Commander Han implemented battle plans that seemed illogical, even to his own officers, but worked precisely because they made no tactical sense. The Void Forces began to slow their advance. For the first time in living memory, they were not immediately victorious. "We're hurting them," Han told his officers, "but not enough. We need more information about how they think, how they're organized." The opportunity came unexpectedly. During a skirmish near the western city, Earth forces managed to isolate and capture a void entity. The creature, if it could be called that, was partly mechanical, partly biological, with a shifting, dark surface that moved like oil. Dr. Min studied it in a specially constructed containment cell. "It's connected to something," she reported. "Even isolated, it's trying to transmit data." Using modified Ardelian technology, they managed to extract information from the entity's communication attempts. What they learned changed everything. "The Void Collective is a hive mind," Dr. Min explained to Commander Han and the other leaders. "But not like Earth's social insects. It's more like a virus with a shared purpose. Each entity is expendable. They've never needed to develop survival instincts." "That explains their tactics," said Captain Yoon. "They overwhelm through numbers and adaptation, not skill." More importantly, Dr. Min continued, "they've never encountered meaningful resistance before. Their attacks are always so overwhelming that species surrender or are destroyed in days. They have no strategy for a prolonged conflict." The most crucial information came last: the location of a major void command center. The captive entity had been trying to send data back to this hub, revealing its position. Commander Han studied the star charts showing the command center's location. It was heavily defended, at the center of void control territory. "If we could strike there," he said thoughtfully, "we might disrupt their entire network." Earth's reconnaissance ships confirmed the information. The command center was massive, a space station of sorts, but organic in appearance, pulsing with dark energy. Around it clustered hundreds of void ships. When Han proposed attacking it directly, even his most loyal officers looked doubtful. "Sir, we'd be outnumbered 30-1, said Captain Yoon. "The math is actually worse than that," added Dr. Song. "More like 50-1, considering their weapons capabilities." Delegate Kang, who had become a regular presence in the Earth Command Center, was more direct. "Your biology may be remarkable," Kang protested, "but this is suicide." Han smiled. "That's what makes it unexpected." His plan was audacious. While the main Earth fleet performed what appeared to be a desperate, frontal assault on the command center, a small team would approach from the opposite direction in a captured void vessel. They would penetrate the command center and plant devices designed by Dr. Song, weapons that would disrupt the collective's communication network. Without their shared consciousness, they'll be isolated units, not a cohesive force, Han explained, even temporarily. "Who will lead this team?" asked Captain Yoon, already knowing the answer. "I will," Han replied simply. The preparation took 3 days. Dr. Song worked without sleep, creating devices that could interfere with the Void Collective's communication frequencies. Engineers modified the captured void vessel so humans could operate it. The Ardelians provided crucial information about the sector's space lanes and gravitational conditions. On the eve of the mission, Delegate Kang visited Commander Han in his quarters. "Your species continues to surprise me," the Ardelian said. "Most life forms seek safety, predictability. You seem to thrive on risk. Han looked up from his tactical display. Not risk for its own sake, but sometimes the safest path leads nowhere useful. If you succeed, Kang said, it will be the first victory against the Void Collective in known history. When we succeed, Han corrected gently, it will be the beginning of their end. The next morning, the Earth fleet moved into position. The main force, led by the thunderstorm, prepared for what appeared to be a frontal assault on the command center. Meanwhile, the small infiltration team, Commander Han, Captain Yoon, Dr. Song, and 5 specially trained soldiers, boarded the captured void vessel. As they departed, hidden by the magnetic field of a nearby moon, Han looked at his small team. The Ardelians think we're crazy, he said with a slight smile. The Void thinks we're primitive. Let's prove them both half right. The small, dark ship accelerated toward the heart of enemy territory. The captured Void vessel moved silently toward the command center. Inside, Commander Han and his small team watched through viewports as the massive structure grew larger. The command center resembled a giant dark spider, with long extensions reaching outward into space. Main fleet is engaging now, Captain Yoon reported, monitoring communications. The Void forces are responding as expected. Han nodded. Their diversion was working. The bulk of the Void ships moved to intercept the Earth fleet, leaving their rear approach relatively unguarded. Activating camouflage systems, Dr. Song announced. She had modified the captured ship to broadcast the same identification signals as other Void vessels. Let's hope they don't look too closely. The small ship drifted toward a docking extension. So far, their deception was working. The massive battle unfolding on the other side of the command center had drawn all attention away from them. But the cost was terrible. Through the comm system, they could hear the desperate reports from the main fleet. Earth ships were being destroyed one by one. The Thunderstorm, under temporary command of Major Min, fought valiantly against overwhelming odds. Aurora just went down, reported one of the soldiers monitoring the battle. All hands lost. Han's face remained calm, but his hands tightened into fists. Each lost ship carried people he knew, friends, colleagues, brave men and women who had volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. We honor them by succeeding, he said quietly. Prepare for docking. Their ship connected to the command center with a soft thud. For a moment, they waited in tense silence, unsure if their presence had been detected. When no alarm sounded, Han gave the order to move. They exited the ship wearing environmental suits designed to mimic the energy signature of Void entities. The interior of the command center was unlike anything they had ever seen. The corridors pulsed with dark energy. The walls themselves seemed alive, contracting and expanding like breathing lungs. Stay together, Han ordered. Dr. Song, guide us to the central hub. Dr. Song consulted her scanner. 3 levels up, approximately 500 meters ahead. They moved quickly but cautiously. Occasionally they passed Void entities floating through the corridors. The creatures paid them little attention, focused on the battle outside. When they reached what appeared to be a central processing area, Lieutenant Buck discovered a series of chambers extending from the main room. Curious, he looked inside one. What he saw made him stumble backward in horror. Commander, he whispered urgently, you need to see this. Inside the chamber were thousands of transparent containers. Each held what appeared to be a living being, connected to tubes and wires. As they watched, energy visibly drained from the captives, flowing into the structure of the command center itself. They're farming them, Dr. Song said, her voice shaking despite her usual composure. Extracting their life energy. Han moved closer, examining the containers. The beings inside represented dozens of different species, some humanoid, others completely alien. All were alive but barely conscious, their life force being slowly drained away. This is what they meant by harvesting, Captain Yoon said grimly. They don't just take resources, they feed on life itself. Lieutenant Buck was scanning the chambers with his device. Sir, these energy signatures match multiple known civilizations, including some that reportedly went extinct centuries ago. Han's expression hardened. They've been doing this across the galaxy for hundreds of years. Every species they've conquered. Before they could process this horrifying discovery, alarms began to sound throughout the structure. The walls pulsed faster, turning from dark purple to angry red. "They've detected us," Dr. Song said, checking her scanner. "Our camouflage is failing." "Move to the central hub," Han ordered. "Now." They ran through the pulsing corridors, no longer concerned with stealth. Void entities converged on them from all directions. The team fired their modified weapons, cutting down the creatures, but more kept coming. They fought their way to the central hub, a massive chamber where thousands of energy streams converged into a pulsing core. "Set the disruptors," Han commanded. "Defensive position." Dr. Song and 2 soldiers began placing the special devices around the core, while the others formed a protective circle. Void entities poured into the chamber from every entrance. 10 minutes to activation," Dr. Song called out. Han's communicator crackled with an urgent message from the fleet. "Commander, we can't hold much longer. The thunderstorm has taken critical damage. Engines failing, weapons at 20%. Hold position," Han replied. "We're almost." A massive explosion rocked the command center. Han was thrown against a wall, a sharp piece of debris piercing his environmental suit and embedding in his side. Pain shot through his body as he struggled to his feet. Captain Yoon rushed to his side. "Commander." "I'm fine," he said, though blood was already soaking his uniform. "Status report." 3 minutes to disruptor activation, Dr. Song called out. "But the central core is adapting, trying to neutralize our devices." Another explosion shook the chamber. Part of the ceiling collapsed, crushing 2 of their soldiers instantly. Dr. Ju, the team's medical officer, reached Han and quickly assessed his wound. "You're losing too much blood, Commander. You need immediate medical attention." Han pushed her hands away. "Later, focus on protecting Dr. Song." The situation outside was equally dire. The Earth fleet had been reduced to less than half its original size. The thunderstorm drifted, its engines dead, still firing its remaining weapons at the approaching void ships. Inside the command center, Han felt his strength ebbing. The pain in his side grew worse with each breath. Dark spots danced at the edges of his vision. 1 minute to activation, Dr. Song announced. Han activated his communicator. "Major Min, status report." Min's voice came through, steady despite the chaos audible in the background. "Thunderstorm is critically damaged. Life support failing on decks 3 through 7. We're surrounded, outnumbered, and down to our last torpedoes." Han coughed, tasting blood. "Hold position. We're almost there." Dr. Ju worked frantically to stabilize him, injecting emergency medications into his suit's medical port. "Commander, you need to remain still. Continue the operation," Han ordered through gritted teeth as Dr. Ju tried to stem the bleeding. Another wave of void entities entered the chamber. Captain Yoon and the remaining soldiers fought desperately, their weapons fire illuminating the pulsing walls. "Disruptors active," Dr. Song shouted. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a high-pitched whine filled the air. The energy streams feeding into the core began to flicker and fail. The void entities in the chamber froze in place, then began moving erratically, as if confused. "It's working," Dr. Song said, her face showing exhausted relief. "We've disrupted their network." Han tried to stand but couldn't. "Send the signal," he managed to say before slumping back. Captain Yoon activated the emergency beacon, broadcasting to the Earth fleet that the mission was successful. Aboard the damaged Thunderstorm, Major Min received the signal. Despite her ship falling apart around her, she smiled grimly. "All remaining ships," she broadcast to the fleet. "The command center has been compromised. Execute attack pattern Omega." She turned to her bridge crew, who looked at her with a mixture of fear and determination. "We're surrounded, outnumbered, and our commander is down," she told them. In other words, they're exactly where we want them. The Earth ships, though badly damaged, suddenly changed tactics. Instead of defending, they launched a coordinated attack against the now disorganized Void fleet. Without their central command, the Void ships moved clumsily, their perfect coordination shattered. On planets throughout the sector, something unexpected began to happen. Species that had been conquered by the Void Collective, long thought defeated or extinct, began to fight back. The disruption of the command center had weakened the Collective's control over all its territory. 12 hours later, Earth reinforcements arrived. A second fleet, carrying specialized weapons designed by Dr. Song's team, based on everything they had learned in the initial battles. As rescue teams extracted Han and his surviving team members from the command center, the commander drifted in and out of consciousness. Through the haze of pain, he heard Captain Yoon reporting that other species were rising up across the sector, joining Earth in the fight against the Void Collective. "We gave them hope," Han whispered before darkness claimed him. The wounded commander didn't see the former slaves he had helped free, or the grateful faces of the Ardelians as they watched Earth's reinforcements arrive. He didn't witness the beginning of the largest resistance movement the galaxy had ever known, all sparked by humanity's refusal to surrender when faced with impossible odds. Commander Han opened his eyes slowly. The bright lights of the medical bay made him squint. His side ached where the void weapon had pierced his environmental suit. He tried to sit up but felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Not yet, Commander," said Dr. Ju, checking his vital signs. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." "The mission?" Han asked, his voice rough. "Successful," Dr. Ju replied with a small smile. "The disruptors worked better than expected. The Void Collective is in disarray across this entire sector." Han closed his eyes briefly, feeling a wave of relief. So many lives lost, but not in vain. When he opened his eyes again, he saw Delegate Kang standing nearby, the Ardelian's tall form casting a long shadow. "Your species continues to defy expectations," Kang said. "The medical team didn't think you would survive such injuries." "Deathworlders," Han said with a weak smile. "We're hard to kill." 2 weeks later, Han stood in the main strategy room aboard the repaired Thunderstorm. His body was still healing, with bandages visible beneath his uniform, but his mind was sharp and focused. Around him gathered Earth officers and representatives from 7 previously conquered species who had joined the resistance. "The disruption of their command center gave us an advantage," Han explained, pointing to a holographic map showing void territory. "But it's temporary. They're already beginning to reorganize." "Then we must strike again," said Captain Yoon, "before they can fully recover." Han nodded. Operation Stormbreak. Simultaneous attacks on all major void strongholds. The plan was ambitious. Using intelligence gathered from newly liberated planets, Earth's forces had identified 12 key void facilities. With the addition of ships and warriors from other species joining the fight, they now had the numbers to attack all targets at once. The Void Collective has never faced coordinated resistance, Dr. Song pointed out. Their entire strategy is based on overwhelming individual civilizations one at a time. And now they face many civilizations working together, added Delegate Kang. As the others continued planning, Kang approached Han privately. "You fight like no species we've encountered," the Ardelian said. "We thought you would simply defend your territory, as most species do." "Because we fight for more than survival," Han replied. "We fight for the right of all species to exist freely." Operation Stormbreak began 3 days later. Earth ships, now joined by vessels from 7 other species, launched simultaneous attacks across void territory. The Thunderstorm, with Commander Han at the helm once more, led the assault on what they believed was the Void Collective's central consciousness, a massive structure hidden deep in an asteroid field. The battle was fierce. The Void forces fought with desperate intensity, sensing perhaps for the first time that their existence was threatened. Earth ships took heavy damage. Allied vessels were destroyed, but the combined fleet pressed forward, using the adaptive tactics that had proven effective in earlier engagements. "They're falling back," reported Major Min from her position at Tactical. "Defensive lines breaking in sectors 3 and 5. Han nodded, studying the battlefield display. "Press the advantage. No retreat." For 6 hours, the battle raged across the asteroid field. The thunderstorm pushed toward the central structure, taking hit after hit but refusing to turn back. Finally, they broke through the last defensive line. "Prepare boarding teams," Han ordered. "I'll lead the primary assault." Captain Yoon looked concerned. "Sir, your injuries are not relevant," Han finished firmly. "This ends today." The boarding team consisted of 20 Earth soldiers and representatives from each allied species. They cut their way into the central structure, fighting through waves of void entities. The interior was even stranger than the previous command center, pulsing with dark energy and shifting constantly, as if alive. At the core of the structure, they found it, the central consciousness of the Void Collective. Unlike anything they had expected, it appeared as a swirling mass of darkness, neither fully material nor energy. Tendrils of blackness reached outward, connecting to thousands of neural interfaces. As Han approached, the consciousness seemed to sense him. The darkness contracted, then expanded, forming what almost looked like a face. "You are the anomaly," it said, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through sound. "The unexpected variable." "I am Commander Han of Earth," he replied steadily, "and I represent the united species of this galaxy." The face twisted into something like a smile. "So many have fallen before us. All are eventually harvested. You will be no different." "You're wrong," Han said. "You've never faced Deathworlders before." He signaled to Dr. Song, who activated a device unlike any they had used previously. Instead of attempting to destroy the consciousness, it established a direct neural link. "You consume others," Han said as the device powered up. "Let's see how you handle what humans have evolved to endure." The device activated, and Han grimaced as it connected his neural patterns directly to the void consciousness. Through this link, he projected not just his thoughts, but the collective experiences of humanity, the fear, pain, loss, and struggle that had shaped their evolution on Earth, the crushing gravity, the extreme temperatures, the natural disasters, the diseases, the wars. The void consciousness recoiled, its form writhing as it experienced sensations it had never encountered. Pain, fear, doubt. "This is what makes us strong," Han said through gritted teeth, maintaining the connection despite the strain. "Not just our biology, but what we've endured, what we've overcome." Then, unexpectedly, Han changed the input. He projected different human experiences: compassion, sacrifice, forgiveness. The consciousness twisted in confusion, unable to comprehend these concepts. "And this is why we won't destroy you, even though we could," Han continued. "We offer you a choice: end your consumption of sentient life and join the galactic community, or be contained permanently." For the first time in its ancient existence, the Void Collective hesitated. Throughout the galaxy, its forces paused simultaneously, no longer receiving clear directives. The neural link maintained, Han showed the consciousness one final vision: a galaxy where all species coexisted, where diversity was strength, where even the void could find a place if it chose to change. 3 months later, Commander Han stood before the newly formed United Galactic Council. Representatives from 32 species filled the chamber, including some that had been thought extinct before the liberation. His uniform was adorned with commendations, though some of his wounds would never fully heal. "The void remnants have been contained," he reported. "Those entities that accepted our terms have begun the transition to independent existence." Delegate Kang, now the Council's first chairperson, nodded in approval. "And Earth's position on continued military presence in former void territory." "We will maintain defensive capabilities," Han replied, "but our focus should shift to rebuilding. Too many worlds were devastated, too many cultures nearly lost." Throughout the chamber, representatives nodded in agreement, Species that had once viewed humans with fear or suspicion now looked to Earth with something like reverence. When Earth heard your SOS, Han continued, addressing the entire assembly, we responded not because we are fearsome, but because we understand struggle. Our harsh world taught us the value of helping others survive. Let this be the beginning of a galaxy where no desperate signal goes unanswered. As the council erupted in approval, Han looked out at the diverse gathering of beings. Deathworlders they might be, but humans had brought something else the galaxy needed even more than strength, a fierce determination that freedom and peace were worth fighting for. In the years that followed, ships from Earth ventured farther into the galaxy, not as conquerors but as protectors. The species that had once classified humans as dangerous anomalies now sought their friendship and alliance. The galaxy learned that calling Earth's Deathworlders brought not just their fury when needed, but also their compassion when the fighting ended. And somewhere in deep space, the last SOS signal from the Ardelian Republic continued its journey outward, a testament to the day when humanity answered the call and changed the fate of a galaxy. The end.